So we're going to look at timings of these applications, Acelepryn, NemaTrident, how we can time the two together, and how Syngenta's digital tool offering can support us when we're making those decisions out in the field. So we have a number of tools available to you that Syngenta offer. We've got Pest Tracker, the Syngenta Turf App, Weather Pro, On the Horizon Advice Podcast, Turf Advisor, which is something that is coming over the hill very, very soon, and Greencast Advisory. Now, for the best levels of control from the technologies we've looked at today, we're going to lean on both Acelepryn and NemaTrident. Now, in this trial, we had around 100 leather jackets per square metre. When we lent purely on NemaTrident to support us, we dramatically reduced that population down to around 33%. When we used Acelepryn at the UK labelled rate, we managed to get that down to around 10, so a reduction of around 90% in those leather jackets in those treated plots. But when we pulled the two strategies together, we can get excellent levels of control. In many of the trials we've put in, we've managed to get 100% control by integrating Acelepryn and NemaTrident. I'm going to talk through a little bit later on how we get that best level of control. Now remember, that integrated rate is 2.5 billion per hectare, which works out at 25 nematodes per centimetre. It's your responsibility to make sure we deliver as many of those alive to the surface as we possibly can. Okay, so from a timing point of view, to integrate those strategies really, really well, get the very best out of them, we need to be applying our Acelepryn at the end of October, and then we need to follow that up within 7 days with our NemaTrident and NemaSpreader combination. No later, if we can possibly avoid it, than the 1st of November. And when we've done this out in the field in a number of our trials, we have seen consistent results. Now what we've got here is a summary of 5 trials, all out on golf courses, some in the UK, some out in France. And what we can see is in the untreated, we were averaging around 35 leather jackets per untreated plot. By using that NemaTrident and NemaSpreader combination, we've reduced that down to 20, so good population reduction, but not control. And then Acelepryn's brought that down to around 12, maybe not the results we would hope for, but sometimes this is against mature leather jackets and we've identified that they are a problem. But when we combine that, we see higher levels of control. Now you can see that really nice consistent trend all the way through. So we know we can replicate this, we know it happens, but we know we need to get the timing right. So why is the timing so important? Well, nematodes are incredibly sensitive to temperature. So if it's too cold, they'll be really dormant and they won't go searching for the host. If it's too hot, they won't survive very long. They are highly effective at key points in the target insect's life cycle. So we've got to understand that life cycle. We've got to make sure we target them and apply them at the time when the insect is vulnerable. And we also know that mature leather jackets can defend themselves against these nematodes. They have defense mechanisms, so we need to make sure they're either juvenile or weak and stressed. Now we know for the UK an awful lot about this because the industry has been fantastic at supporting us with one of our digital tools, Pest Tracker. Pest Tracker is a great tool to use to report when you're seeing crane flies flying. When they're flying, we know we're very close to them laying in the juvenile eggs because they don't survive in the soil very long. Very simple tool that you can find on our website. You click on the target insect you've seen, put your postcode in, and it will log that. And on the back of that, we've managed to gather a vast amount of data over the last 4 years. This is all the data, February through to December. Plotted across the country from south to north. Looks a bit of a mess when you look at it like that, but that has allowed us to analyse this data and fully understand. And what we've learnt is that the hatch generally starts across the country, south to north, around the very last week of August. We've also noted that it finishes around mid-November in the south, but somewhere around the beginning of October up in the north. Now that hatch continues a bit longer and we found that out from people reporting their data. So thank you for reporting your data, keep it going. But what we're looking for to optimise our applications is peak flight. And actually when you study this data, north or south to north, peak flight is pretty consistent across the country. It's around beginning of October, maybe the 3rd week of September. So we know to get the very best out of Acelepryn, we are looking for applications in around the beginning of October across the country. There's only a few days in it. Now, Acelepryn is also a little bit challenged because we have a new label for the UK, which is both exciting, but also brings new challenges. The label states that the application should be made just around peak of adult flight. And thanks to the pest tracker data we've got, we can start to identify this. So this is 4 years worth of pest tracker data reported by industry, and we've worked it out into the weeks to understand what's going on. And you can see our peak flight is right around second week of September, all the way through to about the 3rd week of October. So this is our peak flight. This is when the label is telling us we've got to get in and apply. What we also need to do is understand soil temperature, because soil temperature is the big driver for the insects once they get into the ground. And we also need to understand how nematodes are reacting with that soil temperature. So we can see we've got the challenge of getting the insects in the right place. We need them in the soil. We also need the nematodes to be at their most active. Now this is soil temperature for Ilkley, pretty much in the middle of the country. And the orange line you can see here is 8 degrees. Why 8 degrees? Well, 8 degrees is when NemaTrident F is at its most effective. 8 degrees for 3 to 6 hours a day is when that nematode starts to become really, really useful. And what we can see is those soil temperatures are dropping right around here in November. So in order to make the most of them, we've got to get them in before the soil temperatures drop below the 8 degrees. Because once we get below the 8 degrees, they're not doing a job for us. So we can start overlaying all of this data. We've got our peak flights reported by industry. We've got our soil temperatures. And we can start targeting this area for our optimum applications of both Acelepryn followed by NemaTrident to get the best levels of control possible. Now that weather is critical to all of this. It's a pretty tight window. It could adjust a little bit one way or another, and you want to keep an eye on it, and we want to provide the tools. We've got several tools in our armoury. We've got Weather Pro, which will give you soil temperature data across Europe that you can look at to start to see, are things seasonally normal or are they adjusting? You can find that in our website. You can also use these mapping systems to look at soil temperature, air temperature, wind speed, evapotranspiration, soil moisture and rainfall, an incredibly powerful digital tool housed in the Syngenta Turf website. We've also got something we're working on right now that is going to be available to the market very soon called Turf Advisor. I'm going to touch on that in a minute. Before we get there, this is another tool that is in the Syngenta Turf website. This is historical soil temperature. This is historical rainfall and historical soil temperature. So you can go into your site and you can look at those specific metrics for you. You can register your peak flight and look at that. And you can start picking out that 8 degree for your soil temperatures for nematodes, and you can start picking out your optimum window. But my bet is it's always going to fall in right around that very end of October. Try and get it down before the 1st of November, because soil temperatures will start to drop then. Now, one of the things we haven't mentioned much today is chafers, and there's a reason for that. If we look at your reported data from Pest Tracker, this is broken down into months rather than weeks like we've done with Leatherjackets, and you can see at its most we've had 79 reports. So we get nowhere near the engagement on chafers that we do with cranefly. But the other pattern we can see here is it starts in April and it doesn't really finish till October. The data shows us it drops off in August. Now that could be one of two things. Either we hit some serious drought in August, which means that they don't fly, or most people reporting and go on holiday on August and forget all about Pest Tracker. It's one or the other. We need more data and more support on chafers, and that's something we're going to focus on going forward. So chafers are tricky to pick a window out. We continue to work on the data to really support that, both understand the insects in the UK and understand the value of an integrated solution. Initial data shows that it offers a strong solution there, but we continue to gather data and we will feed that back to the industry when we have it. Now, the other thing I mentioned was Turf Advisor. Now, Turf Advisor is the new app we've got coming down the line. Come and talk to me if you want to get registered on there. This is what it looks like. We have the opportunity to look at all the weather metrics on your phone, and you set them up and customize them for you with risk settings so you can understand when you start hitting your target temperatures. Loads of models on there. We've got growth potential models, disease models, wind speed, spraying operations, all the things you could think of that are going to help you on a daily basis make decisions. And we're going to start scrolling through those. This is what it looks like. Lots and lots of metrics, some paths, leaf wetness models, spray windows. We've got mapping systems in there as well to help you understand what the whole thing looks like. So we've got a really solid offering on our website, but we're now starting to offer that in app form too. The other app we can offer you is the Greencast Turf app, which will help you set your sprayer up correctly. It will help you choose the right product. It will help you find all those labels that you'll be looking for, help you identify disease and pests. That is available on all good app stores. Greencast Advisory is a podcast that myself and Henry from ICL do, where we try and offer the latest advice. We'll try and support you through your processes and your decision making through that year. So look that up on Spotify, you'll find our podcast there. And that's pretty much the digital offering. We know the timing of these things is critical. We're trying to support best we can from a digital point of view. Use those tools to support you to get the very best out of these two new technologies.